and speed that shatters logic. They move above our homes. They rise from the oceans. They drift through military airspace like ghosts with purpose. You've seen the rumors, heard the stories. But what you're about to witness is not folklore. It's not science fiction. It's footage, it's testimony, it's undeniable. Some were recorded at 20,000 feet. Some were buried in government silence. Until now. So ask yourself, are you ready to see what the world wasn't supposed to? Stay with us. Watch closely, because once your eyes open, they may never close again. This is X-Sight, and they are no longer hiding. The sky was unnaturally clear that day. No clouds, no wind, just a pale blue canvas stretching forever. At 2:30 p.m., a Homeland Security aircraft, a modified Beechcraft 350C, cut through that silence at 20,000 feet. Inside the pressurized cabin, the hum of the engines was steady, routine. The crew, experienced and sharp, were conducting a surveillance mission. Their instruments were sensitive, their training precise. This was controlled airspace, predictable. Until it wasn't. Without warning, a flicker passed ahead of the cockpit. Not a flash of light, not a bird. It was something denser, metallic, yet soft in reflection, just a shimmer, barely there. The co-pilot leaned forward instinctively, narrowing his eyes. But before he could speak, it was under them. The object moved with a kind of impossible grace. Not jerking, not tumbling, it glided. A dark gray cylinder, football-sized, silent and smooth. It passed just 10 feet beneath their starboard wing. Not a gust of wind stirred, not a vibration. It simply slid under the fuselage as if it belonged there. Every reflex in the pilot's body fired. Autopilot disengaged, manual controls snapped in. The aircraft rolled left hard, an alarm screamed in the cockpit. Warning lights pulsed red. A second of chaos, then nothing. Silence returned. The object had vanished. LA Center, this is Troy 21. We just had something pass under us. Cylindrical, dark gray, no clue what it was. There was a pause on the line, then a measured reply. No known traffic in that area. Say again, was it a drone? But it was. Drones don't fly that high, that fast, and certainly not that close to Homeland Security aircraft. The crew scrambled to check sensors, instruments, exterior cameras, nothing, no trail. No contrail, not even a radar blip. But then something did appear. 60 miles out, faint, small, but moving fast, too fast. Calculations began quietly in the cockpit. If that object had traveled from them to that point in less than 2 minutes, it was moving at Mach 2. That's twice the speed of sound, in controlled airspace, without a transponder, without a whisper. Troy 21, we're seeing something bearing 94. Looks like it's 60 miles from your position. The co-pilot frowned. That's impossible. The lead pilot didn't respond. His eyes were locked on the horizon. The object, whatever it was, had broken every rule of flight, and yet it had moved with intention. It didn't wobble like debris, it didn't blink like a flare, it was guided. Still, it made no sound, no exhaust, no heat signature. Military aircraft, no way. There was no military operation in that zone, no drills, no warning, a drone, laughable, and a bird at 20,000 feet. This wasn't wildlife, this was contact. And though they never said it aloud, something in the way the crew exchanged glances, silent, tight-jawed, said everything. They were trained to face threats, to confront chaos. But this didn't belong in the air, this didn't belong in any known file. They were afraid, not of crashing, not of error, but of the fact that what they had just witnessed was real. And in that instant, high above the earth, one silent question lingered in the cockpit. Who else saw it? Because in the vast sky of routine and radar, something had slipped through. And it wasn't finished. It was the quiet before a deeper realization. Suddenly, something flickered on the radar, just a dot. Faint, almost like a mirage, bearing 94. 60 miles out, the voice from air traffic control broke in. This time less confident than before. Troy 21, we're seeing it too, but we can't lock the signal. The dot began to move, not slowly, not erratically. It cut through the sky fast, too fast. The system struggled to refresh. The tracking software couldn't keep up. And what chilled the crew wasn't the speed, it was the trajectory. A dead straight line, unbroken, unwavering, not the behavior of a drone. Not a jet, nothing man-made. The pilot narrowed his eyes, doing math in his head. If it really moved from our position to there in under 2 minutes, then it's faster than anything we've ever built. There was no sonic boom, no vapor trail, no heat bloom somehow. It had moved like thought. They switched to infrared tracking. Result, nothing, no heat signature, no propulsion, no exhaust. The object wasn't emitting, it was absorbing. A moment later, the radar dot vanished. Not faded, not exited range, just gone, the co-pilot whispered. It knew we were watching. Not everyone believes in UFOs, but everyone in that cockpit now knew. They weren't just seeing something strange, they were being seen. It hadn't just passed by, it had tested them. The object had stayed just below radar blind zones, at an altitude most sensors don't cover, then vanished exactly when they started tracking. And in the blue glowing cabin, the fear wasn't about what might happen next. It was the realization that they hadn't discovered something, something had discovered them. In the heat-warped stillness of the California desert, a quiet storm was forming. They came not in uniform, but in silence. Men and women who had once worn the insignias of intelligence agencies, aerospace firms, and government departments. Now they gathered in folding chairs beneath air-conditioned tents, notebooks resting on their laps like sacred texts. This was no ordinary conference. This was contact in the desert, where science, suspicion, and disclosure collided. This year's theme was whispered more than it was spoken. Event horizon. What lay beyond that edge? What was about to break through? At the center of it all was a man named Ross Coulthart, an investigative journalist who no longer asked questions for headlines, but for history. He didn't bring theories. He brought names. Names of insiders, names of programs, names of things the public was never meant to hear. From the stage, voices spoke of recovered craft, non-human technology, and reverse engineering projects hidden in plain sight. Maps were drawn, locations pointed to, terms like transmedium, quasi-biological, and intelligence beyond intent echoed from mic to mic. They weren't telling ghost stories, they were recalling events, witnesses, whistleblowers, and the ones who had worked with things that bled light instead of oil. No one in that room laughed, because no one came to be entertained. They came to compare notes on something impossible. And behind every voice, every slide, every coded sentence, one unspoken truth pressed in. Something is here, and it doesn't belong to us. The hallways were gray. The doors were numbered but meaningless. Somewhere deep beneath Washington, D.C., conversations were happening, unrecorded, undocumented, unforgettable. At the heart of them stood a man named David Grush. He wasn't a blogger, not a theorist, not a dreamer. He was intelligence, cleared, trusted, until the day he spoke. In 2023, his voice echoed inside Congress and rippled across the world. There is a program, a retrieval program. It collects non-human craft, and I know the people involved. The room went still. No laughter, no rebuttal, only the hum of realization. He wasn't alone. Commander David Fravor, a Navy pilot with a flawless record, had once chased an object over the Pacific. No heat, no wings, no logic. It moved like it knew physics and ignored it. Grush claimed that thousands of videos exist. High-resolution, multi-angle, classified. Some captured craft diving into oceans and emerging moments later, bone dry and glowing. Others showed acceleration no human body could survive. The programs were buried in black budgets. The technology was being studied, but not by the people. "If you think this is about belief," Grush said, "you've already missed the point. This is about access and control." There was fear, yes, but not of the craft. The fear was of the silence, because silence can't be debated. It can't be audited. And behind that silence, something waited. The Pacific was sleeping. Moonlight shimmered across the surface like glass frozen in motion. But deep below, something was waking. From the deck of a Navy ship, a crewman adjusted his thermal scope and froze. It began as a soft glow, submerged. Steady, then it rose, not floated. Rose, a sphere of light broke the surface without sound, no splash, no waves. It passed through the ocean as if water were mist. Then another, then two more. 4 objects in total, each identical in size, movement, and silence. They hovered for just seconds, pulsing faintly like heartbeat rhythms. And then, in synchronized unison, they shot upward, vanishing into the night sky without a trace. No sonic boom, no heat signature, just emptiness filled with questions. The crew said nothing at first, not because they weren't trained for anomalies, but because they knew this wasn't an anomaly. This was a pattern. It mirrored what Fravor saw in 2004. It matched what submariners whispered about in locked rooms. And it reminded them of something ancient, that the ocean doesn't just hide things. Sometimes it delivers them to the sky. There are labs that don't exist on maps. Rooms where fluorescent lights never flicker, and doors lock from the outside. Inside them, men and women with PhDs and clearances sit before objects that look more like sculptures from another dimension than machines. They aren't told where the materials come from. They are simply told, figure it out. What they study doesn't have wires or circuits. It has seams that vanish under microscope, surfaces that react to intent, not touch, no manual. No code, no precedent. Trying to understand this, one engineer whispered, is like handing fire to a fish and asking it to invent the light bulb. According to insiders like Grush, this has gone on for decades. Materials moved between black-budget labs, buried under corporate names, hidden beneath security levels that outlast careers. Some pieces are intact, others are not, but none behave like they were made on Earth. And in every case, the same truth surfaces. We didn't build it, but someone did, and someone doesn't want us to know how. In the high desert of California, where dust paints the stars in amber, a group called Skywatcher meets in the stillness. They bring telescopes, notebooks, arrays of antennas, and one strange device. No one really knows how it works. They only know what it does: a metal rod, a copper coil, a signal generator. Together they call it the electromechanical dog whistle. When activated, there is no sound, no flash, just waiting, and then a light, a flicker, a movement miles above where satellites sleep and jets never reach. Every time the device is used, something answers. Not always visible to the eye, but always traceable on radar. Sometimes a sphere, sometimes a dart of shadow. But never random. They've tried at different times, different frequencies, different skies. The result is always the same. It's not just observation anymore, one researcher said. It's a conversation, and we're the ones who spoke first. Whatever's up there isn't hiding, it's responding. For decades, the sky held its breath, and so did the governments beneath it. But now the silence is cracking. Congressional hearings, leaked videos, whistleblowers who no longer care about consequence. Something is happening and everyone can feel it. The media tries to reframe it. Skeptics try to laugh, but the people watching the skies, they don't blink anymore. So why now? Why not in 1994 or 2004? Because now too many cameras point up, too many voices record, too many truths are no longer isolated, they're networked. But there's another possibility, one that whispers through every radar hit, every near miss with a craft that shouldn't exist, every synchronized object rising from sea to sky. They're not just being seen, they're choosing to be seen. It's not disclosure by accident, it's revelation by design. The skies were never empty. We were simply not ready to see what moved within them, until now. You've seen the flight paths that defy physics. You've heard the voices, calm, trained, afraid. You've followed the trail from classified hallways to the edge of the ocean. So now it's your turn to speak. What do you believe? Have you ever seen something that no one believed? Have we been shown too little or revealed too much? Drop your thoughts below, because silence helps no one, but together we build the full picture. This is not the end of the story. It's just the beginning of the questions. X-Site will keep watching, because what's above us might already be among us.